Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. This is Bobby Mills, 1,000-yard guy for the Independent.com, and a little high school football on Bobby Mills Independent Talk Show. We're going to talk some high school football from last week, and gosh, there were a lot of big games around. Grand Island gets a big win, much needed win. Any big games did you go to a game, Eric?
I did not. I was over in Kearney with the hockey opening up, so I did not, but I was watching it on Twitter, quite a bit of them.
Yeah, I went to Millard North and Kearney, and of course, Jimmy's everywhere. I forgot who you had.
Yeah, I refereed at Wood River, and hats off to Wood River. They competed really hard.
Good.
They got a 14-0 lead at the end of the quarter and held on. The first half led 14-6.
Good.
Then they had a couple things that just didn't go their way in the third quarter. It kind of snowballed for them. But, it was their homecoming, and they competed well. And sometimes in high school sports, as long as you can continue to kind of compete and get after it and give an effort, that's all your fans want, and that's all, sometimes that's good enough for me anyway. And I thought they competed well, and their sportsmanship was decent. You know what I mean? And it's tough to give up 32 in a row or 38 in a row when you've been having the lead. Yeah.
With guys transferring
right.
on.
But you're right about Grand Island Senior High. That was a good hit on them. They played that Omaha North team, and we've kind of come to the conclusion. I don't know, maybe I did, that's one team that's an upper echelon team. It's going to be really hard for anybody in Class A to compete with them. You got to do whatever you can. Omaha Burke's taking them on there undefeated this week, but Grand Island, for them to bounce back, they beat a Millard South team and really took complete control of the game.
Yeah, and it's a great response to that Omaha North game that they had last week of coming out and just dominating that from the very get-go and getting that running clock. And it's tough because, like you said, it was almost a must-win with some of these teams. There's nobody sitting back right now. Kearney had a tough game. You knew you might be able to steal maybe one there, and it happened to be that way. But it was pretty much a must-win to stay up there in the district and things like that for senior high.
Well, speaking of must-wins for senior high, that Pius game, Lincoln-Pius, I don't think that they've ever met on the gridiron that I can remember, because Pius is always bouncing back and forth if not B. But you have any feelings about that game, either one of you? Because that's a must-win game, I think, for both of those, because Pius gets drilled, not 38-19 isn't drilled, but the stat sheet didn't show that.
Well, and I think Lincoln Southeast is probably the best team in Lincoln, and they would be up there, but again, there's so many good Omaha teams right now. Pius is still a great team, and like you said, it's going to be a tough one. Grand Island has to go there, so both these teams are going to be fighting for sure, and it should be a good one. I think probably a close one in the end.
And Pius will run, because that's what they do. How about Newman? They beat the fourth, well, they were number 2 in the opener, but they have been involved in 4 1-2 matchups and won every single one of them. They go to Boys Town and beat Boys Town in the corral. And, they jumped on them, I think it was 23-6. Before Bates scored a touchdown for Boys Town. That team is awful good.
Yeah, I was really impressed with them last year. I officiated them against Lakeview last year, and they beat Lakeview. But Lakeview had some good athletes at that time, and it was a big win for them. And they ended up, I believe, the 10 seed in the state, and they ended up going out to Ogallala.
Yeah.
And then immediately have to play the 2 seed, which I don't know if it was Wilbur Claytonio. It might have been, or it could have been SCOTUS. I mean, whoever, but they played, right away. So they'd had a tough second draw, right there. I think they'd have made some noise in the playoffs. Sometimes, if you're the 7th seed and you got to play the 2, who should be the 1 maybe sometimes.
Yeah.
It's a tough ride. But Kearney High played Millard North too this week, and Millard North really dominated the game. Kearney High was undefeated going into it. When I say they dominated, Kearney High ran the opening kickoff back for a touchdown, got the lead, and then they just really had trouble with the offense. I talked to the Coster kid, and I think he told me he had 2 runs, one for 41 yards and another one for about 27. But he finished with 2 yards rushing because he kept getting to him when he went back to pass.
Yep, all those weird race with sacks
right.
And that front line. It's just like the 2 guys that were hurt for Millard North, Dylan Price and Aaron Gertis, were talking to me before the game, and 2 linemen went down on consecutive plays, the center and the left guard for Millard North. They just plugged 2 more guys in and kept right on going. The depth is there, the line is so big, but Kearney's not done yet. They'll do fine the rest of the way because they're manageable games.
Right.
So.
How about the C2 game between Doniphan Trumbull and St. Cecilia, which was probably going to be the district championship game, unless Southern Valley has something to say about this. But did that surprise you? That I think the score was 14-0, wasn't it?
Yep.
I was really surprised St. Cyr didn't score. That really surprised me. I thought they played pretty well against Wood River. I think they missed a couple field goals, but Doniphan Trumbull's defense must have, whatever they were doing, was doing it correct that night.
They always get fired up for St. Cecilia. That's a rivalry game. And Mark Zexer, the Adams Central transfer, made the difference on offense. There's no secret.
I think you
about it.
said that. I thought, but maybe you said that before.
Yeah, and how about Northwest? That's a big win over Holdridge. Jiminy Christmas. I mean, that is big for them. Holdridge is no great shakes, but still on the road.
And I don't know how many points they scored in the fourth quarter, but it looked like Holdridge was going to win that going into the fourth quarter.
Yep.
And I can't remember what the comeback was, but it was big. And like you said, going on the road, Northwest had a tough time up in Scottsbluff, only played a half, and it wasn't even close. But they were able to come back and get that win in the fourth quarter and get a big district win for them, too.
Yeah, you know one thing, there's not much difference between a team going maybe 3-6 and 6-3. But you got to win the close ones. You got to get some breaks in doing that. And right now, Grand Island Northwest, their body language must be really good because they've won some games like that. Yeah. And last year, they had a decent team. They had a pretty good football team. But Class B was really loaded at that top end. So hey, all you can do is try to win the games that are your 50-50 games or games that are just a touchdown less. You can get some of those, steal a couple of those. And that's all you can do.
Play in November.
Yeah, and the next thing you know, you're in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So.
The game I really was interested in was ONeal and Norfolk Catholic, because really ONeal did not know where they were, with that upper echelon, and they pulled out a win with 43.8 seconds left over Peckett. I don't care if Norfolk Catholic's 3-3; they're still a tough football team. And that was a big win for ONeal that might put them up there with Boys Town and Aquinas and Newman and Wahoo.
You give them some confidence anyway, that's right.
And give the coaches credits for not letting the hype overtake the game, because a team like ONeal, who hasn't been up there in this type of spot against a team like Norfolk Catholic, they can almost overhype themselves and get out of a ball game early on. But the coaches kept them pretty solid, and they stayed in that game right up to the end and ended up winning.
In the 8-man schools in the area, you guys that are really good right now?
Palmer.
Yeah.
What about that Palmer team? And I could see this building for 4 years, and they're not big. They're not big at all. But they're sound on defense. They know how to tackle. Their tackling form is unreal. And the Reimers boys, the quarterback, Cade, and then Hunter, they beat the heck out of Burwell. It was not beat the heck out of, but then the High Plains, they get 56-7. I don't know, something like that. And the Thomas Young's hurt on the opening kickoff, and that makes a big difference. But
in the Fort Kearny Conference, and I know that's somewhat in the area with the independent. Elm Creek is having a good year, and Loomis is really having a good year.
Loomis surprised the heck out of me.
I think Loomis is the team that's maybe surprised everybody a little bit. Last year they were getting 45-pointed or 35-pointed. The running clock was going, and now all of a sudden they've come out and spun that out.
Is Dennis Reese still up there?
Yes, he is.
He's a great coach.
I coached against Dennis a few times.
Well, I suppose you have, yeah.
Right.
And then,
refereed a lot of his games. Probably refereed more of his games than I have coached.
But he's a good coach, and the Elm Creek coach is good too. And I saw Elm Creek play last year, and they'll give people problems. Fort Kearny Conference is tough in everything. Big games this week. Eric, I think you have some of them. How about York and Aurora's a big one? Gee.
That is, and I tell you what, that's going to be a good test for York, because we saw it with McCook that they can spread out, but this is going to be an aerial attack for Aurora that York's going to have to defend, and they didn't do a great job of it. So it'll be interesting to see how that defense does against the pass of Aurora. A couple other big games in Class A, Burke and Omaha North, two undefeated teams. I mean, that's going to be a great football matchup. Again, and just to see where Burke's at. I mean, we know where Omaha North is. Where is Omaha Burke at in that situation? You talked about GI and Pius going against each other for the first time, but how about Class B? You talked about Class B stacking. Elkhorn South and Elkhorn are playing against each other, 1 versus 2 there as well. So, and then GICC at home against Columbus Lakeview in the area. Also, we talked about last week, McCook at Hastings. So those are some of the big games around here. Anything jump out at you on that?
Who would have thought Hastings and McCook would be a big one?
Yeah.
Good for Charlie Shoemaker down there. And it could be a big one, because Hastings knows how to play some defense, so.
Well, that's gonna be the district championship game
That
out
will be
there.
the district,
Yeah, but we got Lex and Holdridge is in that, right?
Yep,
Lexington
yep.
and Holdridge, so that's one game's district championship. Now, if McCook would lose, they still could get in the playoffs.
Yeah, they could.
I don't think Hastings can, but if you've got that one-time playoff game here going on. But I'll tell you what's interesting about York. York, after their first game of the season, and you guys can look it up, I think the score was like 38-3. They played Elkhorn South, they got beat. They have competed very well since then. Maybe that game helped them to find out, because they have some weaknesses and they found out some things. But Glenn Snodgrass has done a tremendous job at turning that program around. You know, a lot of times you go into a place and you win for a couple of years, but he actually has turned the program around. What a great coach he is.
I love Grant, yeah, and Coach Snodgrass, no, I just love that program. You hit the nail on the head there. Well, we're talking a little high school football, and we'll talk a little high school football next time when we see it. We'd like to thank Cornhusker Toyota Honda, and we're gonna have a word from them, and we'll see you next time on Bobby Mills Independent Sports Talk.